Today, we're making the ZWWAVE2 by Baguettes. I'll have the pattern information linked in the description for you. The pattern is a small purse that's designed to fit only the essentials. That would include like your phone, your wallet, and your keys. However, if you wanted, it would be really easy to scale this pattern up or down depending on your needs. The pattern designer Carly said that if you scale up the design by 150%, it's the perfect size for a 13-inch laptop case. I'm really hoping that one of you guys make it in this size because I think it would be perfect. This bag is super customizable and has a few different design options. You can make the small handbag version that just goes over one shoulder and has a zipper on the inside, or alternatively, you can do a longer strap version that fits across your body. For this bag, you'll need a medium weight woven fabric, such as a canvas, a waxed canvas, or oilskin. I was a pattern tester for this design and made my first bag out of a faux leather. It wasn't super easy to work with because I couldn't iron the material, but you could definitely try it out if you're interested. Some of the other pattern testers used a waxed canvas and it was beautiful. That's definitely my favorite fabric of all of them. If I was gonna buy fabric for this project, I would definitely choose a waxed canvas. But today, I'm just gonna be using a canvas material that I already have in my stash. I'm also gonna be using an iron-on fusible interfacing. And for the material that's gonna go inside of the bag to help hold its structure, I'm gonna be using the Ultra Firm Stabilizer by Pelon. Now, the lining fabric is optional. You'll only need it if you're planning to make the welt pocket. For my lining material, I'm gonna use a lightweight cotton that I already have in my stash. Next on the material list is a zipper. Again, the zipper is only needed if you're planning to do that interior pocket. The pattern calls for a 6-inch zipper, but it's really easy to shorten a zipper with a whip stitch if you don't have a 6-inch zipper already in your stash. Then you're also gonna need a magnet closure. The last thing on the list is ring hardware. And again, this is optional and is only needed if you're making the long strap version. The pattern recommends that you use a 5/8" round ring or D-ring. I personally had a hard time sourcing this size from my local fabric stores, so I ended up in the jewelry section and I found round rings that were 14 millimeters. It's pretty close to 5/8 of an inch and it worked really well. So I definitely recommend going into the jewelry section if you're having trouble sourcing the size that you need. In terms of the pattern itself, you only need to print 3 pages. I personally recommend printing out the pattern twice because the outside line is going to be used to cut the fabric and the interior line is going to be used to cut the stabilizer. You'll also see later on in this tutorial that I like to cut out the welt pocket so that I can easily trace it onto my fabric, and I also like to cut out the little circles where the magnets are going to go. Now that we've talked about all of the details, we're going to get into cutting our fabric. Make sure that your fabric and your pattern are facing right sides up. I personally cut out my first bag backwards, and that made some of the steps a little bit confusing later on. But that was absolutely my bad, so I'm just giving you a fair warning. And once everything is cut out, we can move on to interfacing the fabric. This step may or may not be necessary depending on the weight of the fabric you chose. If the fabric is a little bit on the flimsy side, I would recommend using interfacing like I'm doing here. I'll be interfacing pattern pieces A, B, C, and all 4 Ds. All right, you guys, at this point we've cut out and we've interfaced all of our pieces. I've also cut out the foam stabilizer, which is gonna go inside the bag, and I've cut out these 2 pieces, which are gonna be for the inside pocket. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to be making the long strap version, but I'm also going to be making it with a zipper pocket on the inside. If you're making this bag and you want it to be completely zero waste, the zipper version doesn't actually have a long strap, but I personally wanted a long strap and I wanted to show you how to make the zipper pocket, so that's why I'm going this route. So we're going to start with our long strap piece. We're going to take it over to the ironing board and iron it before we stitch it. We're going to turn and press the strap in half lengthwise. Once this is done, we're going to open the strap back up and press the outer edges so that they meet at the center fold. Next, we're going to sandwich the raw edges by pressing again on the center fold. Make sure that the edges line up properly and pin or clip it in place. Once that's done, we're going to take the strap over to our sewing machine and we're going to sew the strap with a continuous edge stitch all the way around. I like to take my time when I'm edge stitching so that the seams come out straight and beautiful. Now that the edge stitch is completely done, this is what the strap should look like. We're going to set it aside for now and move on to the zipper. I like to place my pattern piece on top of my fabric and use it as a guide. Then we'll take pins and put a pin through each of the 4 corners. Next, we'll slowly lift the paper and replace the pins so that we can move the paper out of the way. Once the new pins are in place, we're going to flip over the fabric so that the right side is facing up. Then we'll place pattern piece E between those 4 pins. When doing this, make sure that the right sides of the fabric are facing each other. Then pin the fabric in place and remove the pins that were acting as a guide. Next, we're going to take the pattern piece that shows the zipper welt and we're going to cut along the inner lines. Doing this will make transferring the markings to the zipper welt piece much easier. Once the pattern piece is ready, we're going to fold back the edges to reveal the rectangle. Then we're going to trace the rectangle onto the fabric. We'll do the same thing for the interior markings by revealing the edges that we had previously folded and tracing them out. Now we're going to sew along the outer rectangle, starting and ending at the midpoint of one of the long sides. Make sure that this step is done precisely, especially at each corner. Next, we'll take our scissors and cut along the inner lines. Be sure to cut as close as you can to the stitch without cutting through it. Basically, what we've done is created a window for the zipper to appear through. Now we're going to carefully push the welt through the hole to the back side and press the opening to form a rectangle. After it's all pressed and looking neat, we'll grab our zipper and place it on the back side of the hole, centering the zipper and pinning it in place. Then we're going to take our work back to our sewing machine and we're going to edge stitch around the rectangular opening. If you find that your zipper pull is in the way of your seam, simply put your needle in the down position, lift your presser foot, and move the zipper out of the way. This should make sewing the zipper much easier. Here's what the zipper should look like now that it's all stitched in place. Now we're going to flip our work over and pin pattern piece F in place, aligning the bottom edge of the zipper welt with the bottom edge of the lining. From the right side of the fabric, we're going to carefully stitch one line directly offset from our original line by 1/8 of an inch. The offset is important, so do your best to be precise. Next, we're going to iron open the lining piece so that it's facing away from the zipper. Then we'll place and pin pattern piece G on top of the lining and the welt. Again, we're going to flip our work over and sew a line of stitching directly offset by 1/8 of an inch to finish the box around the zipper. Now that that's done, we'll pull all the thread to the back side and tie it off. To finish the pocket, we're going to flip the bottom of the bag upward so that it's out of the way. Then we'll sew the lining pieces together along the remaining opening edges. Be careful not to sew the lining to the rest of the bag. Give yourself a pat on the back because the pocket is completely done and we're moving on to the magnets. We're going to take our pattern piece and lay it on top of our work so that we can accurately place the magnets. Once the magnet is placed, we're going to mark 2 small lines, which indicate where the magnet's prongs will go. Then we'll snip 2 small slits into the fabric. Next, we're going to use the leftover stabilizer to cut out 2 circles with a diameter of at least 1 inch. Then we're going to cut out 2 small slits in the middle of it, just like we did with our fabric. Now we can put the magnet through the front side of the fabric and again through the stabilizer. Once that's pushed through, we'll put the prongs through the magnet's back and fold the prongs open. After doing this to both the bag's interior and exterior pieces, we're going to stitch the stabilizer to the fabric. This can be done by hand stitching or by machine. I'm going to use my machine and sew from the right side of the fabric using the edge of the magnet as a guide. If you're machine sewing, I recommend using the hand wheel and going slowly for the most accurate result. The magnets are officially in place and we're going to move on to the body of the bag. We're going to place the interior and exterior pieces with right sides facing and pin or clip them together. Be sure to mark your starting and stopping point with 6 inches between them so that we have a hole for the stabilizer to go through. Now we'll take our work back to our sewing machine and sew along the parameter with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, we're going to notch the seam allowance around the curves so that they lay flat when they're turned right sides out. I like to use pinking shears for this step, but it's not necessary. Then we're going to reduce the bulk at the corners by either trimming down the fabric or pressing the seam allowance inwards. I chose to press the seams inwards. Now we can turn the bag right side out. I like to use a point turner to push out all the sides and corners and then press around all the edges before putting the stabilizer in the bag. I found that this helps with the insertion of the stabilizer. Once the bag is all pressed, we'll take our stabilizer and carefully push it into each corner of the bag. Ideally, all of the seam allowances will be behind the stabilizer towards the bag's interior. Make sure that you have a perfect fit. And then we'll take our work back to our sewing machine and edge stitch around the entire parameter through all of the layers. Feel free to take your time with this step, especially around the curved edges. After the edge stitch is finished, this is what the bag should look like. We've got a beautiful functioning pocket and we're ready to start shaping it into its final form. So now we're going to measure 5 7/8 of an inch from the bottom of the bag upward. Then we'll finger press the bottom edge. Next, we'll fold the top edge down so that the magnets meet, and we'll finger press the edge into place. When we open the bag up, we'll put a pin on either side to mark the top fold. Now we're going to set the bag aside and grab the rest of our pattern pieces. At this point, I'm going to be following the directions for the long strap with the hardware. We're going to grab pattern piece E and fold it in half. You can press it with an iron, but I found that the piece is small enough that finger pressing works just fine. Then we're going to open it up and press the outer edges so that they meet at the center fold. Next, we're going to sandwich the raw edges by pressing again on the center fold. Then we'll pin it in place, take it over to our sewing machine, and sew a continuous edge stitch all the way around. Now that that's done, we'll fold the piece over and snip it in half. Each of the pieces will be laced through our hardware, and these will be our strap extensions. Now we're going to take all 4 of pattern piece D and sandwich each strap extension between 2 pieces with right sides facing. We'll pin it in place, take it over to our sewing machine, and stitch around the perimeter with 3/8 inch seam allowance at the top and bottom, and 3/16 of an inch seam allowance at the sides. Make sure to leave a 3-inch gap on one side. Now we're going to clip the corners to reduce the bulk and turn the pieces right sides out. This can be a little tricky because it's a small space, but you've got this. Once it's right side out, we'll use a point turner to help sharpen the corners. And we'll take the pieces over to the ironing board to be pressed. Next, we can take each piece and sew a continuous edge stitch all the way around. I found that my machine had a bit of trouble at the top, so I used the hand wheel to crank through this section. Once that's done, we'll fold the strap in half widthwise and finger press or iron. Now it's time to attach the sides to the bag. We're going to line up each side piece with the edge of the bag. Then we're going to sew along the side seam, carefully following our previous top stitching. This step can be sewn by hand or with a machine, but I found that the machine was easiest. Next, we're going to refold the bag along the bottom edge and attach the side piece to the bag, just like we did with the last step. I found that hand sewing half of the seam and machine sewing the other half was the easiest, but you can do whatever feels best for you. Alright, we're almost done, and all we have to do now is attach our strap. So we're going to grab the strap that we previously prepared and lace each end through the hardware. Then we'll pin or clip the edge of the strap to itself and secure the strap with a square stitch. Alright, that's a wrap. Your ZWWAVE2 is now officially finished. Here's what the finished bag looks like, and I'm super happy with the result. I love how simple and sleek it is. Because of the neutral color I chose, it's going to be perfect with any outfit, and I can't wait to wear it out. If you followed along in this tutorial, I'd love to hear how it went down in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe. My goal is to make sewing more accessible to all through tutorials, reviews, tips, and tricks. So you'll find a lot more of that on my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.